Hello and welcome to a Sunday morning edition of the Cyclone Insider podcast and live stream. I am Travis Hines. He is Eugene Rapay. We're coming to you from Jack Trice Stadium after Iowa State's improbable, thrilling, kind of incredible 38-35 victory over UCF on Saturday night to stay perfect at 7-0 heading into the bye week and November into what I think is easily called the most consequential month of the history of the program, as Iowa State will be in the top 10, undefeated, and have the inside path to Arlington and beyond when they return back to the field. But before we get to the big picture stuff, Iowa State played pretty poorly for huge stretches of this game, and yet still somehow won. The defense figured it out. Rocco Becht figured it out. They got enough when they needed it. It was impressive the way they got out of their own way at times at the end to come back, because that would have been, again, another easy one to pack it up and call it a day when you're down 2 scores late. But this Iowa State team does not quit, Eugene, and that is, I think, the most impressive, and that's the identity at this point. Like, they're tough as hell and they don't quit.
Yeah, they're probably one of the most grittiest teams I've ever seen. They just continue to always find a way, and without a doubt, that's the most impressive thing about this team, especially through this undefeated start. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are, one-sided win, lopsided win, or just a last-second comeback like they showed tonight. They just always seem to always find a way to come out on top.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the defense got gouged for, what did it end up being? 354 yards, not great. RJ Harvey goes for almost 200. Ja'Cory Brown, the quarterback, goes for 154. Brown had a terrible night throwing the ball. Iowa State has been lucky that they've had some quarterbacks, which, despite it being pretty prominent in the job description, cannot throw the football. Brown was 8 of 20 for 62 yards and 2 picks tonight, and obviously Iowa State had plenty to do with that, but like, that dude he struggled to throw the football. Another guy who struggled to throw the football was Rocco Beck. 20 of 46, 274 for a touchdown, 2 picks, 2 essential pick sixes. The one to Knoll was, obviously a deflection. Campbell and even Jalen Knoll after the game kind of talked about how the first pick six was maybe a receiver running the wrong route. So maybe the day wasn't as bad for Rocco Becht as the stats would say, but still, watching that game, he missed open receivers, just was not himself. And again, still made a hell of a lot of plays that really mattered. Rushed for 97 yards, kept plays alive. The 4th and 3 to Higgins, Campbell called it as good of a play as he'd seen since he'd been at Iowa State, and I think it's certainly on the short list. The dude just found ways to win in moments when he was needed to come up big, and overcame playing a pretty poor game overall, throwing the ball, by making incredibly timely and impactful plays time and time again.
Yeah, and his scrambling game, I mean, who would have thought he had it in him? Ran for 97 yards, a couple of quarterback sneaks for touchdowns, but just his ability to improvise was big time today, especially when he struggled early on to throw the ball. I think, what was it, Travis? In the first half, like, both quarterbacks combined for maybe a 35% completion rate for a total of 91 yards. But he really stepped it up when they needed to.
Yeah, it was abysmal. Iowa State got life early by Carson Hansen having a big game. Hansen finished with only 9 carries and 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, almost all of which happened in the first quarter. It sounded like he'd been battling injury, and it got to a point where they didn't feel that he could effectively play. Campbell made it sound like nothing major. Hansen was in uniform, had his helmet throughout the game. The guy that did not have his helmet and was not in uniform throughout the game was Ben Bramer. Suffered what looked to be a right knee injury, was on crutches, and was in a full-length leg brace. But Campbell said they didn't think it was serious. So we'll see, I guess. It looked serious, but certainly they you see guys in walking boots now whenever they get even like the slightest of a ankle sprain. So maybe it was precautionary, but the sight was stark. Obviously, when you see Bramer like that, if he were to miss time of any length, it would be hurtful for Iowa State. Obviously, the bye this week helps them going forward. But man, like Hanson's playing great. It's too bad for him that he was unable to continue to go, because what he did last week at West Virginia, what he did to start the game here with what was that 57-yard touchdown to open scoring for Iowa State in the first quarter, like playing really good football. And they talked a lot about how injured he was last year, and you hope for the kid's sake that he can stay healthy, because when healthy, he looks to be a pretty special back.
And just the fact that they try to sneak him back in there in the second half near the goal line there to punch it in, they love this kid. Even if he's 70% or 80%, they're willing to roll the dice with him. It's just unfortunate that he was limited after just such a big first quarter, building off his last game. What was it, 5 straight touchdowns now? Or at the time, yeah, 5 straight touchdowns for the Cyclones dating back to last week.
Yeah, so Iowa State 38-35 over UCF heading into the bye week. They get Texas Tech at home. Then they're at Arrowhead against Kansas before coming home to play Cincinnati. And then it's at Utah versus K-State. Again, like everything's on the table. They're 7-0. Literally an undefeated regular season is on the table. I'm not going to pick Iowa State to go undefeated. Like of those 5 games, I think – they're going to be tricky. I haven't seen a score recently from Utah, but I saw they were down again tonight. Like the wheels are potentially falling off there in Salt Lake City for a lot of different reasons. But I think K-State's still playing good football. Texas Tech got its butt kicked today, but until then they hadn't lost in league play. Kansas has struggled, but I still think they're dangerous. But like ultimately, that's a manageable schedule for Iowa State. Like I don't think again they're going to make it through unscathed. But they're 7-0. Like it's almost at this point a foregone conclusion. Like it feels, it feels like a foregone conclusion that they're finally going to get that 10-win season. Obviously premature to say that, but like all they got to do is win some home games, and they're going to get to 10 wins.
Yeah, and I think that this bye week and just this game overall came at such a great time. That November is going to be pretty challenging. Like you said, it's not going to be easy to come out of it unscathed, and I would be personally surprised at this point if they still kept the magic rolling. So just to have this game like this where things clearly didn't go right, and it was great that they came out with a win, but plenty to fine-tune on. I mean, the run defense today was pretty abysmal, especially when the quarterback just wasn't even throwing at all. And the other running back, Harvey, was just having a big game. They gave up a lot of plays that were probably unacceptable, things that they wouldn't have done early in the year, and it just was a good gut check for them going into this November slate and the bye week.
Yeah, Campbell mentioned after the game that they're holding on for dear life from a physical standpoint, from a health standpoint. You wonder how much, being so far down your running or your linebacker depth chart, and I'm sure the guys that are playing, like Brzezina played today after missing 2 games, like he's probably not 100%. Like are they holding on for dear life at that linebacker position? I think Freeler was out of the game, and his replacement was the guy that got blown by on RJ Harvey's big run early in the game. So, how badly do they need this bye week to try to rest up, to heal up? I think is a huge storyline here, because November is going to be a meat grinder. Even if the schedule feels manageable, November always ends up being a meat grinder anyway, because you're more than halfway into this thing. The stakes get higher. Certainly at an undefeated Iowa State, the spotlight is only going to get brighter, and the questions will only get louder from the national media. It's like if Iowa State is going to be potentially a top 4 seed in the college football playoff, like I can already hear the wailing and gnashing of teeth of people who will think otherwise, most likely from the Big Ten or SEC. But bottom line is, like, Iowa State has the schedule that it has, and it's taking care of business through 7 games now, and it sure looks like they're capable of doing it for more than a few more.
Yeah, 7-0 is most important, and just I think their ability again to just find many different ways to win, regardless of the situation or the stakes, and their ability to stay even keeled and poised has just been a huge boost for them, and it'll continue to be that way moving forward.
Yep, we'll keep this short and sweet as we approach 1 a.m. here at Jack Trice Stadium. Iowa State 7-0 with a 38-35 victory over UCF on Saturday night. The Cyclones are off next week before hosting Texas Tech for a November homecoming game. That will undoubtedly be a big one for Iowa State as they look to continue and set the school record for best start at 8-0, never been done before. The 1938 team, I believe, tied in their 8th game. So they have gone 8 games without a loss before, but never 8 games with only wins. So there's your little nugget you have to write around, Eugene, for next week. For Eugene Rapay, I'm Travis Hines. This has been the Cyclone Insider Podcast and live stream. Thanks for listening. Thanks for